All right, welcome back to our final episode in our DIY dog training for our third part of our series. Today we're introducing a new tool for dog training to Aries. This is, we're going to be using electronic collar today. I want to talk very briefly about the collar itself and how we use it, and then we'll actually show you how we introduce this. First of all, I have no particular preference for brands. This is not an endorsement for any particular device, but what we are using here is a Garmin Tritronics Pro 500 collar, or Pro 550, excuse me. And this collar is one that we've used for several years. We've liked it. There are several other good brands, Dogtra, Sport Dog. There's a lot of good brands out there. In short, if you are shopping for a collar, you get what you pay for. What I would really encourage you to do if you are shopping for a collar, look very closely at the features that collar has and decide what works well for you. In particular, what I am looking for is we will have a collar system, a transmitter that will allow us to communicate with 3 dogs at once. So we can run multiple dogs. This is helpful, especially in the upland scenario where if you have multiple dogs running, you can control multiple dogs at once. I prefer the tube style transmitter. There's also the more traditional walkie-talkie style. It's just a matter of preference. All of them work. All of them do fine. All of them break. It's just a matter of preference. I will tell you, if you watch carefully, you can find some good deals. You can find some rebates. So shop around. There's good options out there. Now, I want to talk very quickly about our collar and first off what we do with it. So when I'm going to install this collar on him, I'm going to put it so that the prongs we want it to be sit tight up against his skin. So when you install it, it's important that we put the collar on. Here, good boy, sit. We want it to be snug against the dog, and I prefer to have the collar be off to the side of the neck. We don't want it right under the throat. We don't want to close off the windpipe. And you want it tight, but obviously you don't want to choke the dog. So you should be able to stick your fingers in there and feel that it's up against the skin, but you obviously don't want to restrict airflow. It's a very good idea to let your dog wear the collar for quite a while before you ever turn it on, before you utilize it. We really like to let the dog wear the collar and then do some of our, say when we're doing marks, doing bird introduction, those things, give the dog time to get adapted to it. You don't want to just slap the collar on the dog and start applying electronic stim. Give them some time to get adjusted to it because they will, not might, but they will get wise to the collar, knowing when they have it on and when they don't. Virtually every dog knows the difference between when they have it on and when they don't. Now, for this particular collar, the reason why I like this one is that it gives me the option to provide, well, I gotta turn it on first. It gives me the option to provide tone, vibration, and electronic stim. So you'll also notice that this is not Aries' first time having the e-collar on. He came here, and when I put the e-collar on, he's sitting here like a good boy. He knows that this is time to get in the game. And so he knows we're gonna train. So he's kind of quit running around like a yahoo. But I like the ability to produce tone, vibrate, and stim. All right, now tone is a great way to communicate with your dog without having to shout for them. If you have your dog that is out and about and we're trying to teach them the hear command, we'll be using tone a lot to help get the dog's attention. This is great because you don't have to shout for the dog. If say you're in a neighborhood or a park or something, you can simply push the button, the dog hears the tone, and we can be conditioned to come to that. That's a great feature. Vibrate is also another great feature. It allows you to be able to provide a stimulus to the dog that there's no irritation at all. It's just a sensation that they will feel, a vibrating collar that can also let them know that they need to do something. Now, we will definitely be conditioning the dogs to electronic stimulation. I want to be very clear that when we are doing this, the electronic stim is important that we understand what and how we are using this. First and foremost, you should always take your collar and at least once a week, take the collar, turn on to a setting that you know, like for example, our collar goes from 1 to 7, and I put it on a 2 and put it on your body. and feel the stim yourself. Because if your device is malfunctioning, if it is producing no stimulation or if it is producing too much stimulation, you need to know that. So you must test it on yourself periodically. This is also a good reminder of the levels of stim that you are applying to the dog. The e-collar is not a tool for punishment. We do not punish dogs with the e-collar. That is not a productive teaching method. In fact, thinking about punishment in general is not an effective teaching method. What we are trying to do is we are trying to use the e-collar to simply replace using a leash. I'm going to say that again, it's important. We are using the e-collar to replace the need for a leash. Right? So the e-collar is to reinforce commands that he already knows, not to teach him a lesson. Right? That's the wrong mentality. If you put an e-collar on your dog with the mentality of I'm going to teach him a lesson, then you really need to think about how you're training your dog. Okay? The purpose of the e-collar is so that if the dog is far away from us or is not in arm's reach, we can communicate with the dog. If your dog is 75 yards away and you tell the dog to come here, there's a decent chance the dog is going to blow you off, especially a young dog. They'll look at you and go, I'm busy. I'm going to go do something else. However, if your dog was 75 yards away and you had a long rope on them and you said here and you pulled on the rope, the dog will come to you. You could literally pull them in, right? So the purpose of the e-collar is to be the rope, to pull, to give them a tug, if you will, an electronic tug to tell them you have to come to me. So that's what we're trying to do with the e-collar, right? So it is about communicating with your dog without a leash and allowing your dog to be at a greater distance and not having to worry about them not being able to feel you follow through with a command. So there are lots and lots of videos on most e-collars come with like a training guide helping you get your dog conditioned. A lot of those are very, very good. What I say is when I do this is I am looking for when I put the collar on my dog and I'm going to apply stim, electronic stimulation, I am going to be watching very closely the dog's behavior, right? So I want to know if he vocalizes, if he yips, barks, whines, cries, that's probably too high. Now, some dogs vocalize very easy, but most dogs should not be crying, howling, whining, crying when you apply electronic stim. They should respond with maybe they'll turn their head like this, maybe they'll flip their ear, maybe they'll move their head like this or something, but they should not cower and crush them to the ground. Now, what we're going to do over here is we're going to use the e-collar today to reinforce the commands that Aries already knows. He knows the here command and he knows the sit command. So what we're going to do, I've got my lovely assistant is going to be helping me over here. We're going to get situated where we're going to bounce him back and forth between us. And all we're going to be doing is applying the here command and the sit command. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply stimulation every time I say here and every time I say sit. Right? So all we're doing is it's just like pulling the leash. Okay? And this is a low stim. It is not something that is painful. We certainly should not hear any vocalizing. But I want to show you what it looks like, and we'll also talk about how we can use electronic tone. All right, so we're going to make this even simpler for Aries. We're going to be using food to bounce him back and forth as a reward so that it is condescendingly clear here what we want him to do. He has done this since he was a puppy. Good sit. Good. Good.
Aries, here. Aries, here.
Shake.
Aries, here.
Bend down. Bend
Aries,
down.
here. Aries, here.
Go. Go.
Aries, here.
Go. Come on.
Aries, here.
Come on. So here we've got Aries. Sit.
Aries. Sit. Good boy.
So Aries is a little confused on this first rep. Don't be
Aries.
surprised. That's okay. Obviously, Aries is a little bit more connected to me. Good boy, good sit. Okay.
Aries, here. Aries, sit. Aries, sit.
Sit.
Aries, sit.
Good. Nope.
Aries, sit. Good.
Nope. Aries, here. Sit. What? If he wants to come into the heel position or the sitting position, I'm okay with
Aries,
that.
here. Good boy. Aries, sit. Good boy.
Okay, so now we got him working here. I'm going to use the tone to help encourage him to come back. Aries, here. Sit. Good boy.
Aries,
Good.
here. Aries, here. Aries, sit. Good boy. Aries, Aries. Good boy.
So tone. Aries, here. 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 Okay, here. So there we went up a level. Here. Here. Good. Good. So that's too high. Sit. Good. Okay, so that was 3. He made a tone. This
Aries,
tells us that's
here.
a little too high.
Aries, come here, baby. Aries. Here. Aries, here. Aries, sit. Good boy.
Good boy. Good. Aries, here. 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 Come here. Here. Hey, come here. Come here. That's a good boy. Sit. Okay. So this will be part of the fine-tuning process. When you're doing this, so that was a medium level 2, he vocalized. So that tells us that Aries is going to be pretty sensitive. We don't have to use high pressure. He responds. Oh, that was a little high. So we'll go back down a little bit. We're going to fine tune where we get him to respond.
Aries, here. Aries, here. Aries. Aries, sit. Aries, sit. Good boy.
Aries, here. Good boy. Sit. Good job. Good.
Aries, here. Aries, come here. Aries, come here, boy. Aries. Aries, here. Aries. Aries, sit. Aries.
All right, so now we're going to do tone. Aries, here, 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 here. And he's blinking his eyes, so I know he felt that. Here. Aries, here, here. Good. Very good. Good boy. So that was literally me tug their leash, tug, tug, tug harder until we get him to respond. This is very early in his e-collar conditioning process, and so that's good for us to see him respond, and we can really fine tune exactly what is the level that he needs to respond at. Good boy. Good.
Aries. Aries. Aries, here. Aries. Aries. Aries, sit. Good boy.
Here. Good boy. Heel. Sit. Good dog. Okay, now we're going to stop there for a second because Aries did something really important I want to emphasize. Okay, your dog is going to figure this out, and when they do, Aries did something very important there that we call beating the pressure. Okay, the dog understands that the stimulus is coming in exactly the same way as when we talk about when you pull on the leash versus when you just say here and the dog comes. The dog anticipates the pressure and wants to beat it. This is a very important step in the e-collar conditioning. We want the dog to know that the pressure is going to come and they have to respond. In this case, he beat the pressure. This is something we're going to talk about when we get into step 4 about beating pressure and responding to pressure. So it's an important piece of him understanding the way that we're going to communicate. So this is very early in the e-collar process. Don't be surprised if your dog is a little bit confused about bouncing back and forth with e-collar pressure. That's okay, all right? There's nothing wrong with that. Remember, this is all about the early teaching process. So this is how we get your dog started with the e-collar. Thanks for watching.